In addition to being MD of Hot Dog Cafe, Derek Smith also sits on the Exco for the Franchise Association of South Africa. He heads up the Stakeholder Relations Committee, which is working with government on Phase 2 of the Jobs Fund initiative. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Derek, I want to start off by just giving us some background information on the Jobs Fund.
Yeah, well, the Jobs Fund was actually established by the state announced by the state president at the State of Nations address in 2011. It's a 9 billion rand fund meant to create 150,000 jobs in a short-term basis. That's a 3-year rollout, maximum 3-year rollout. It's done in different phases. It falls under the Development Bank of South Africa, which is in turn under National Treasury.
Now, you were the first recipient of money from this Jobs Fund. How did you utilize this?
The first franchise to receive benefit from that. We received a 17 million rand grant. This was to specifically train previously disadvantaged, mainly young people, focused on young people, and transfer business skills to them and create jobs. The objective of our grant is to create 310 jobs and 62 new micro businesses, like you saw with Dumasani, over a 3-year period.
Hot Dog Cafe, as a brand, recently acquired London Pie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
It's quite logical, really. A lot of the single brand shops, in my opinion, have been battling in commercial shopping centres in the last few years, since the recession started hitting in. Escalating rentals, escalating electricity costs, wage costs are really squeezing the margins because the consumer can't afford to absorb the escalation in food prices as they used to in the old days. So you've got squeezed margins, and single brand shops are just taking a thrashing in some areas. What we found is by the two brands are extremely complementary. We put both brands into one shop in Brooklyn shopping centre. We increased the turnover by 50%. So they didn't steal from each other, they added value to each other in the same square meterage, which means we made each square metre of that shop much more effective, each staff member more effective. We've rolled out 3 shops so far, and each one of them has been highly profitable. So it just makes sense to us to rather have multi-branded shops in the same square meterage, give the customer more options, and it's a winning formula.
Derek, how do you actually find your franchisees, and how do you select them? How do you coach them?
On the cadet side, which I think is what we want to focus on, is we find a site first, and we're given sites by certain companies like Walmart, Massmart, under their corporate social responsibility program. And then we go into that locality, and we get youngsters to apply to us from that local area. They go through an interview process, and obviously we select who we think are the most appropriate people for the opportunity. We then take them to Centurion for a month. It's classroom and training store experience for that 1 month. We put them up in accommodation while we're building our unit. And then we put the unit down and we transfer them back to that locality, and they operate under our training and mentorship scheme for the next 6 months, and they compete for a loan to actually win that business and win that franchise. So within 7 months, a young person can come from unemployed to have the opportunity to own a business.
And what is the difference between a franchise and a licensee?
A licensee is basically a product-based, where we would put a product into something else. For example, with Wild Bean Cafe in the BPs, they sell Hot Dog Cafe product. But it's not our operation. It's not a business system, a business format. Our franchisees have got a very strict, structured business format that they purchase from us.
Now, as you know, we had one of your franchisees on the show previously, and we spoke about the controls being a big issue, about bringing in other product through the store and trying to bypass your controls. How have you managed over the years? I mean, surely this is something you've learned how to do better and better at in terms of the controls.
Yes, we have a network of business consultants that are visiting on a continuous basis and assessing the standards. Because in a franchise system, you're really only as good as your weakest link.
Yeah.
if you go into a hot dog cafe and you get bad service or a bad product, then you probably won't go to another hot dog cafe somewhere else in the country because your experience remains with you. Similarly, why we're so strict on what the offering is, if you go into one hot dog cafe and you get a product, you expect that product in any other hot dog cafe that you go into. So if you don't want to be disappointed. So we have to ensure that we can, whenever we introduce a new product, it can be serviced nationally, it can be produced nationally, it can be delivered nationally, and to the same rigorous standards.
Derek, give us a sense of some of the course content that you go through during your training process.
We actually, it's very hands-on. I call it a practical BCom because it's only in a month. So you're teaching, most importantly, basic cash flow. We find a lot of the youngsters have very little idea on how to control their cash flow, personal budgeting and business budgeting, separating their own money from the business money. A lot of stress on that. How to deal with people, marketing, basic marketing techniques, especially locality marketing techniques. Obviously things like hygiene, first aid and safety we do, fire drills, and then all the product, of course. That's peculiar to brands because we have 2 or 3 different brands. And everything you need to literally run a business. One thing I realized very early on when we were only doing hot dog carts is with a hot dog cart, it's the same as running any other business, it's the same as running mass mart. You've still got to look after your customer, you've still got to buy product, and you've still got to make a good product. So it's all those basics.
I noticed that you call it a practical BCom. Do you think that we miss out on a lot of practical training in the courses that we tend to have?
That's a good question. I think, thinking what I knew when I came out of a BCom, it was very, very little. For practical application, I knew how to write up a balance sheet and to interpret figures, but did I know how to make money, and did I know what was fundamental to running a business? I don't think I did. I learnt that in the hard school of knocks, of getting out there and doing it. So I think in many ways small business owners are very well skilled because they've been through that hard school of knocks. But not knocking academic training, I think it's got tremendous value.
Your cadets or your franchisees, what do they pay? Do they pay anything for the setup?
No.
Nothing?
No.
At all?
No.
And no franchise fee on a monthly basis?
It's built into the loan. They're effectively, obviously, we have to cover our costs and our cost of our structure. It's a business.
Right.
But we do that. The loans come from, the actual capital loans come from 3 sources on this project. Mazzazani, which is Old Mutual, the Public Investment Corporation, which you probably know of, and the balance from the NYA. That's about 18 million rand. We lend up to 100%. I mean, some young people do have access to some capital and introduce capital, and that's we're happy with as well. But what we do is, if we stand surety for some of these loans, or the portion of those loans. So once we're organising the funding, almost like a micro lender, if you know what I'm saying, with lending in bulk and passing on, then that franchisee is under very strict, they've got very strict conditions and systems. We monitor the cash flow, we do the accounts, and we slowly delegate that over the 5-year period until our liability is complete and they've paid their loan off.
Derek, just give us a sense of who can apply to become a part of this process, and in particular, apart from race, are there any other issues that you look at, like age and skill sets that these candidates possess?
We're focused on the youth. I think the fundamental problem area in this country is unemployed youth. And we qualify youth as under 40. I just missed that. But then we also look for minimum matric. We like guys who've tried to do a little bit more. Unfortunately, a lot of the youngsters don't have the funding to see things through nowadays. We get many, many applicants that have started a degree or started a diploma, and they just don't have the funding to see it through. But that's shown an intention to improve. So we look for that sort of thing. But attitude is critical, more than anything else.
So if I'm a viewer out there, I'm inspired to join this process, who do I contact and how do I go about that?
I'd send an email to andy@hotdogcafe.coza. He's new business orientated. And clearly we may not have an opportunity immediately available in an area, but then we put the applicants on a list, and the moment an opportunity does become available, then we inform them to try and come for an interview.
Derek, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, it's great.
Now for the MTN Business Office Etiquette Tip of the Week.